How's it going, everyone? We've got quite a lot to talk about in this video. It looks like one of these State of Play announcements, albeit not a major announcement to a lot of people, but I think exciting nonetheless, has been leaked in a remaster collection. We'll talk about that. A big announcement a lot of people are waiting for is a new Resident Evil that potentially might not be here later today. At least according to Aesthetic Gamer, he indicates that RE9 is not going to be revealed at the State of Play. We'll talk about that, and hey, Rocksteady making a huge bounce back. We'll talk that at the end of this video. But right off the top, Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 Remastered has been leaked over on the PlayStation Store. Along with that, a bunch of images. Now, this is coming from Aspire, and from a visual standpoint, does look quite a bit better, and I know people have been wanting Legacy of Kain to make a comeback, and here we go. Let's see how this remastered collection does as far as that's concerned. Now, Legacy of Kain itself is not this gargantuan IP. However, if you owned a PlayStation 1 back in the day, Legacy of Kain was one of those standout games that a lot of people did really enjoy. And Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver was released on Steam a while ago, but it also got pulled from Steam, so this would be its first re-release as far as that's concerned as well. Not an IP that I have a strong affinity towards. Like, I played it back in the day, but you're talking about going when I played it to the early 2000s, and I was just super young. But I've always heard the rhetoric for years and years that, you know, people wanted Legacy of Kain to make a comeback, and at the very least, this isn't a brand new title, but you do have a remastered collection, and if this does potentially well, maybe that'll open the eyes of some publishers, so we'll see how that is going to turn out. And obviously, this is most likely going to be one of the reveals and the announcements at the State of Play later today. One of those games that may not be at the State of Play that I think a lot of people are waiting for is Resident Evil 9. Aesthetic Gamer noted on Twitter, "To be 100% transparent, I neither from any of my sources or in the grapevine have heard any rumblings of Resident Evil 9 being revealed tomorrow. I'd love to be wrong and we get something on RE9, but I'm not personally suspecting it's time to be announced yet." It'll be interesting to know when Resident Evil 9 is going to come out. I was expecting 2025 because Resident Evil is one of those franchises that if you look at their release structure, it is incredibly consistent in terms of output, and at the very least, you get a game every 2 years, because if you remember, Biohazard came out in 2017, RE2 the remake came out in 2019, Village came out in 2021, and actually 2020 had the RE3 remake as well, and then it was an off year in 2022 if I remember correctly, and 2023 had Resident Evil 4 remake. 2024 would be the off year, but you would think that 2025 would have a major Resident Evil release, whether it be Resident Evil 9 or a remake entirely. I know this is one that a lot of people are waiting for, but I wouldn't really worry too much about Resident Evil not being at the event and not being showcased, just because this is one of those franchises, and Capcom in general, as a developer and a publisher, they've been incredibly consistent. This isn't a case of games going MIA forever and ever. If they don't decide to announce it at a particular event, you know that it's still making a lot of progress. Like, at this point, Capcom should have earned that goodwill. I get annoyed when, you know, we get multiple State of Play events without any first-party announcement, but Capcom, their output is stellar. Their output is tremendous as far as how consistent they are. You know, and Resident Evil is one of those franchises that you look at the output has been incredibly consistent, far more consistent than the majority of other developers these days. So even if you don't see an announcement for Resident Evil 9, whether it's at this event or it's at the Game Awards, it's gonna be announced sooner rather than later. And the great thing about Capcom as well, when they reveal a game, the release, generally speaking, isn't eons and eons away. Obviously, there have been instances like Pragmata, which went in, I don't want to say dev hell, but that game got delayed a lot. But generally speaking, Capcom is one of those developers that they reveal a game, a lot of the times they'll have a release date to go along with it, or at the very least, it'll be at most like a year and a half away, and a lot of the times just like a year away or even less than that. Look at the Resident Evil 4 remake. I believe that was announced in spring of 2022, and then it was released in spring of 2023. Like, that's the type of turnaround I'd like to see. What I dislike from a lot of developers is when they announce a game 5, 6, 7 years in advance, and then you know, people are asking about the game constantly. Like, we know RE9 is in development. We know that the game is probably relatively far along, and when it's revealed, we'll probably get a release date, or at the very least, a release window alongside it. But Capcom is one of those developers that I really don't worry about, because again, their output is so consistent. It's when I get, you know, a lot of the PlayStation first party that hasn't put out a game in 5-6 years that I'm just like, all right, maybe it's time for y'all to reveal a game, and it would be great to hear about one of those at State of Play. As far as Capcom and Resident Evil goes, I don't think it's that big of a deal, although at the same time, I know that this is one announcement and reveal a lot of people are waiting for, so I can see why people are getting angsty. Lastly, Nick Shepshall over on Twitter noted that he's heard that Rocksteady is working on another Batman game, and that Sony is trying to money hat it. I imagine either some sort of exclusivity deal, whether it be content, whether it be a timed exclusive. That would make a lot of sense, given that Sony has worked directly with Warner Brothers when it came to the Harry Potter games. Harry Potter Hogwarts Legacy, I should say Hogwarts Legacy, had exclusive content, and then Quidditch Champions was a PlayStation Plus title. So Sony and WB Games have had a working relationship, and just because Sony is involved doesn't mean it'll outright be an exclusive. They haven't had, from what I recall, a WB title be straight up an exclusive, and Suicide Squad also had an exclusive PlayStation partnership. Remember, like, Suicide Squad got the bulk of its gameplay reveal at a State of Play event. As far as Rocksteady goes, they've got to do a lot to earn the goodwill of the consumer back. But remember, gaming, as I've said before, is very much a what have you done for me lately kind of industry. If Dragon Age Veilguard turns out to be a great game, the narrative will shift overnight on BioWare. If Rocksteady drops one high-quality game, the narrative on them will shift as well. Now, the issue is, can a BioWare, can a Rocksteady, these perceived washed studios, drop a high-quality game? Easier said than done, and I don't know if Rocksteady's capable of that anymore. Batman Arkham Knight came out almost a decade ago. That is how long in the tooth we are of Rocksteady actually putting out a good game. Suicide Squad came out earlier this year, and it had 9 years of turnaround time from Batman Arkham Knight to get to Suicide Squad. Even if they're working on a Batman title now, hopefully it won't be as arduous of a dev cycle, given that Suicide Squad was their shift into a live service title. It was a gigantic failure, a gigantic flop, one of the biggest flops in gaming history, and I can't even say it was the biggest flop of the year, given that we're living in a year that Concord came out, but you get the idea. I would say Suicide Squad is one of the most depressing releases of the year, given that it's coming from a studio that in the late 2000s into the early 2010s was heralded as a studio that could do no wrong, and Batman Arkham was one of the favorite franchises for a lot of people in that PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 era, you know, with Arkham Knight. And to see them go from that into Suicide Squad, that had to be one of the biggest fall from grace. And think about not how quick it was, but just one game from the Arkham trilogy into something as terrible as Suicide Squad. Like, that's wild to think about. But again, if they drop one high-quality title, hopefully out in the next 3 to 4 years, because you would think that them reverting back into what you would think would not be a live service, nonsensical title and something that they're comfortable with, although I do know that Rocksteady, as far as the studio itself, a far cry from what they were in the late 2000s and early 2010s, so all of those elements will be interesting to follow, but I would love to see Rocksteady get back to doing what Rocksteady does great. Suicide Squad was a huge blunder, but so many studios have had huge blunders with their foray into live service. A BioWare, a Naughty Dog, which Naughty Dog's game doesn't get that much flack because it was outright canceled, but they wasted a lot of time. BioWare, Naughty Dog, you go on and on. EA, Ubisoft, they've just dropped game after game that has forayed into this live service element, and so many of them have just been disasters. Suicide Squad, absolute disaster, but let's hope that they can get back on track with the new Batman title. That's going to do it for me. Again, Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver 1 and 2 Remaster, definitely going to be revealed at the State of Play. Resident Evil 9, unfortunately, probably not going to be at the State of Play, but I wouldn't worry too much about that at all. I worry about the studios that haven't said anything, that there's a lot of inconsistencies with their output. In the case of Capcom, consistency has been their bread and butter for the most part. Outside of something like Pragmata, Capcom has been incredibly consistent with their output, and Resident Evil as an IP has been incredibly consistent, so I don't think there's any reason to worry about that. When it's announced, I'm sure it's going to be out fairly quickly thereafter. And Rocksteady, rumored to be working on a new Batman title. That's going to be doing it for me. Sound off with all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to hit the subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, do us a favor and hit the bell icon. This way you'll be notified whenever we post a new video. That's the best way to keep up with all of our uploads, and we usually try to upload 2 videos a day. And with the bell icon hit, you'll be notified whenever we do upload a video. As always, thanks for watching.